In this video, I want to talk about video and audio plugins to help your client integrate media into their site. Now, before we get started, it's certainly worth asking the question, why even bother with plugins in the age of HTML5? Now, for example, I've inserted an audio tag, the new HTML5 audio tag in here, and I've put in the file, the controls, and so forth. And we're going to see that it creates its own player. And I'm going to also insert a YouTube link here because we also have Autoembed, not just HTML5. So let's update this post. And we'll just take a look here and see. There you go. So there's my video automatically embedded, and there's my audio automatically embedded. There we go. So what's the purpose of audio and video plugins in this day and age? Well, amongst other things, there's ease of use for clients. Now, I had to go into HTML mode and enter that audio tag, format it correctly, put in controls, all those sorts of things. Some clients aren't going to feel comfortable doing that necessarily. And a plugin, even if it's simply creating the HTML5, it's going to make it easy for them to do that. But it's also going to do things like, in the case of audio, for example, I had to create an OGG file for that because Firefox doesn't support MP3s at this point because of legal issues. So I may want a fallback Flash player, and that's what the plugin could provide is, look, if HTML5 isn't working, have this as an alternative. But the client never has to deal with any of that. They just simply enter the URL for the MP3. Customizing the look, that's another factor. Notice there I auto-embedded the YouTube video. Well, I didn't have much control over it, other than width, which is set in my browser, and I could do with short codes, but again, that's not user-friendly for your clients. So a lot of these plugins will allow you to customize sizing, colors, things like that, maybe even adding some captions and all sorts of things. Also, plugins can allow you to create playlists, to group things. Even if it's a playlist from YouTube, it makes it easy to import that playlist, as well as categorizing particular videos that you've put into the system. Podcasting features, another element that a plugin can help to automate for your clients. Things like the feeds, the automatic feeds for it, the stats from people downloading and so forth. And of course, HTML5 compatibility, you want to look for that as well in a plugin. Make sure that it's got that as an option as we get closer and closer to sort of universal compatibility with HTML5. All right, those are some of the features to look for in some audio and video plugins. Let's take a quick look at some video plugins, and I'm just going to name some here and talk about them briefly. Viper's Video Quick Tags. This was a great little plugin, and actually the developer of this was heavily involved in the Autoembed development for WordPress itself, and in a sense kind of put himself out of business in a way, because these video quick tags were a series of buttons that appear on your button bar, and it allows you to embed, a YouTube video, Vimeo, all the different types. Now, it's still around, although it hasn't been updated in a long time. And again, the auto embed feature is pretty much doing everything now. So you may or may not want to look at this point. It may depend on if there's something specific, a specific tag that this plugin supports that your client uses a lot. It might be valuable that way. Smart YouTube, a very popular one as well. That makes it very easy to use YouTube playlists, which again is very important, and supports HTML5. Don't forget, in all of this right now, at least as of 2011, we still have the iPad, iPhone issues without using Flash. So you need to have those alternatives for them so that your clients aren't getting stuck with their visitors being lost, having no video and so forth. WordTube is a plugin I like to use a fair bit, and I especially like it because it's kind of like its own media library for both audio and video, and it uses JW Player by default, although you can add Flow Player. There's a plugin that adds on to the plugin. JW Player, of course, a very popular Flash-based player for videos. Just be aware that you do need a commercial license for JW Player. This is not a freebie. It's for non-commercial use, it's free of course, but for commercial use you do need a license. And of course there's just straight JW Player for Flash. This doesn't organize the way YouTube organizes, categorizes. You can even insert your own image easily at the beginning of each video. A lot of flexibility with it. This is strictly the player as a plugin, but again, it makes it easy for people to use. Blueberry PowerPress podcasting plugin. Doesn't have to be just for podcasting. This will work with both audio and video. This one uses Flow Player. And PodPress, of course, a very well-known plugin, especially for the early days of audio podcasting, but it does both audio and video. Briefly, let's look at some audio plugins, of course, PodPress and Blueberry, as I mentioned. Then there's one called Audio Player and WP Audio MP3 Player. Again, these provide the Flash interface. Not all of them are necessarily updated yet for HTML5, so you'll need to check that out before you look at it. But that gives you an overview at least of some of the issues to look at with plugins. Does your client feel comfortable using HTML5? Do they need help? Do you need cross-browser and cross-platform compatibility? All of these are issues you need to look at with video and audio plugins.